everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Now a couple of months ago I made a very cool piece which was a giant hammered Rolo round. I'll put a little photo in here to remind you all of what it looks like as we've now sent it off to its new owner. So it was a super cool piece, and it was actually a little bit of a happy accident because we charged up the large furnace with one of the big crucibles here, as you can see, and as the silver was melting we actually had to leave the house unexpectedly. So I turned the furnace off, just left everything as it was, turned it off, and we went away. And when I came back later that day, of course everything had cooled down and solidified, and when I tipped out of the crucible this big 20-ounce plus lump of silver, I had this idea to hammer it within an inch of its life just to see what would happen, and it ended up looking really cool. Now I've got this idea in my head to produce one step better, have a set of hammered Rolo rounds, all with the same diameter, but obviously differing heights based on their weight. So we're going to make a 20, 10, 5 and a 2.5 ounce set of Rolo rounds, and I think they're going to look really cool. You've probably seen the finished result in the thumbnail perhaps on this video, but this process is really at day one for me right here. We've got all of the silver laid out ready to be melted, but it's probably going to take me about, well, a couple of days to pour them, or I say pour them, to cast them, and then it's going to be at least a 6 or 7 week turnaround for hallmarking and then finishing and hammering them, much to the disturbance of my neighbours, I have no doubt. So today's video is going to show that end-to-end process of how we do it, how we create this big Rolo set. I hope it works out. I'm sure that we'll get something out of it. Whether or not the set will work and look good, time will tell. We'll have to see. So yeah, interesting times ahead. Now, as I said, this is actually cast silver rather than poured. Now, of course, poured silver is what I kind of do. You know, it's what I'm known for in that sense. You put silver in a graphite crucible, you melt it, and then you pour it into a mold. That is what poured silver is all about. Cast silver is something slightly different, and that's of course where you just put the silver into whatever receptacle you want to take it to take the shape of, melt it and leave it to cool. So that is exactly what we're going to do with this big graphite crucible. I don't have a big cavity oven to melt these things in. We're just going to melt it in place, take this out, leave it to cool, and hopefully we'll end up with a pretty cool result. Now, one thing that we are going to be doing, which is very interesting, I think, is, so you'll see here we're using Nui Owls, 1 ounce coins. I want to try and get these as accurate weights as possible. Now, when I put these on the scales just to see how much it all weighed, what we saw was quite interesting, 624.22 grams. Now, 20 troy ounces worth of silver is 622.1 grams. So we've already got 2.1 grams extra worth of silver from these 20 coins, which I think is really interesting. So I was thinking about, well, if it's 20 ounces exactly here, I might just put an extra gram in just to be on the safe side in case, I don't know, anything evaporates. I don't know if that happens, but just on the safe side, if something was caught on the edge of the graphite crucible and didn't melt entirely, we'd have over 20 ounces. But I think with that much free silver, we're just going to go ahead with it. So essentially, the next step is melting the silver, and I'll head over to the silver pouring bench and we'll show it coming out in its molten form and then setting. Hopefully it'll look pretty cool. So we'll see you over at the pouring bench. Okay, so we're ready to rock and roll. The first 20 ounces is melted and we've just got to cool it. So we're going to take the crucible out and just let it cool naturally. There we go, big hot crucible of molten silver. Probably take a little bit of time to cool. Look how awesome that is. Still liquid. You might be able to see some of the convection currents in there. I think it's starting to cool now from the outside in. You can see the temperature differential of the graphite crucible. Still hot obviously at the bottom. It's quite mesmerizing really to watch. Look at it, it's like lava. There it goes. See some of it forming from the outside in. I think there's going to be like a little crevice in the middle. And some of that stuff you can see is kind of the graphite schmutz on top. It's going to look like a meteor impact. This is going to be pretty cool. And there it is. That's all solidified now. I'm not going to touch that for quite a long time. We'll catch up with it on the table in a bit and see how it looks before we obviously hammer it, and I'll probably do a little bit of cleaning to get some of that graphite off. But that's the first one, and we'll have the others, the 10, the 5, and probably the 2.5 ounce shown in sort of super speed motion. But we'll catch you up at the other end and see what they all look like once they're cast and then ready to be hammered. So here we are at the next stage, which is going to be the hammering, and you can see that we've had a little bit of an issue. So the idea was to make half the size of each one. So have this one be 2.5 ounces and be half the size of the 5 ounce. These two have worked, or these three have worked out perfectly, but the little 2.5 ouncer, as you can see, it did not fill the entirety of that crucible. It's a really interesting property of silver. Silver has an incredibly high surface tension, which is like water. You see water droplets on a table, it balls up, and that's exactly what silver does as well. You can see the rounded edges, so it doesn't go completely flat, which is really interesting. So we're gonna have to scrap that idea of the 2.5 ouncer, which is a little bit of a shame, but nevertheless, we're really happy with the way that these big chunky Rolos have turned out, and once they're all hammered up and stamped, they'll look pretty cool. So you can see on the top we've got these little interesting bits right in the center which look really strange, but that's just where the kind of conglomeration of the little bits of graphite that had degraded from the crucible went. We just cleaned those off, and now we're ready to go with the hammering. So I'm going to speed this process up for you because for me it'll take quite a long time. Got some ear defenders as well. This will probably put much annoyance onto my next door neighbours, but it is what it is. We give them a nice bottle of wine every year for Christmas. So here we go. This is the hammering of the big chunky 20 ounce round, and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so now we've hammered all the tops. We will get to hammering all of the sides and the bottoms as well, but that process is actually going to happen after we get these back from the Edinburgh Assay Office, once they've had their hallmarks applied. And part of the reason that we do that is because to put a hallmark on this, or put any stamp on this now, is a little bit more difficult than usual, because we've compressed some of the silver down already, which is really interesting. So it becomes slightly harder to stamp onto the silver because it's all been compressed already. So to have a really nice flat bottom that they can have on a hard surface, and it won't matter if they put a considerable amount of force onto it to get the mark into the silver, is best. If we just hammer this out and they put it on a hard steel surface and hammer down for their hallmark, it will slightly warp the hammering and I'll have to do it again. So there's just no point. So we're going to do all of these sides and bottoms at a later time, but what we have to do first is put our own stamp on it so that the Edinburgh Assay Office know where to put their hallmark, and we're having it underneath a few little stamps that we've getting put on this here now. So I'm just going to get all of the stamps that I need out and ready so that we're organised. So we're going to be putting on the weight, so we need those and that. Okay, so there's a fair few stamps to go on. The big one though is our BYB logo, and this is the trickiest one of the lot, and if we mess this up then we're going to have to remelt this Rolo round. Any stamper out there knows that it is difficult to stamp at the best of times, and you have to have real patience, real kind of just confidence is always key. So I'm going to do one firm swift strike here to hopefully get some impression onto it, and things will bounce slightly, that's the problem. So if you do more than one strike at once, the chances are your stamp will jump up, and then that will leave a secondary impression, a kind of double strike, so to speak. So it's really important to take it up after every single strike just to see how it's going. Now this one is quite tough because we're going to have to go a little bit deeper, because if you remember there was that kind of little divot in the centre of it. So we're going to have to go a few times to get the Y showing up here on the BYB. I'm just going to try slightly angled. Yeah, it's starting to get a little bit more definition. Yeah, we're getting there. It is just needs to be a fairly deep stamp, which is not the easiest thing to do on a hammered piece that you've already compressed the silver quite considerably. So I think this will be the last one. Yes, there we go. So it's a nice deep BYB, but it is on there, which is really important. Next, we're going to put the OZT above the top. And again, one firm swift strike. And then we go over it if we need to. See, I dread to be in the Edinburgh Assay Office, or any assay office to be honest, because when you're doing this on your own stuff here before it's hallmarked, you know, if you make a mistake, you remelt it and that's fine. But the Edinburgh Assay Office are doing it on potentially a pretty finished item, or at least a semi-finished item, which might already be sold or earmarked for sale. So for them, they have to get it right. There is no option. And I've never had a situation where they've got it wrong, but they've got some very talented people there, and if they did get something wrong, there might be solutions for it. So interesting. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. So there we have 20 ounces BYB 2020 with our two leaves. Now that doesn't look like it shows up very well, but we will antique all of this at the end and make it shine out from the silver. So I'm just going to crack on with these off camera, super fast motion, and then we'll send them up to the Edinburgh Assay Office. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you probably back on the table in a few weeks for me, just a few seconds for you to see how they've turned out at the end. And here we are a couple of weeks later with all of the hallmarks added to the pieces. Really, really great work from the Edinburgh Assay office. Don't worry about the Sharpie pens, that will all polish off when we're done. All that's left to do is to hammer out the sides and bottoms of these rounds, which will take quite a while. So we're going to go in fast forward speed motion once again. And here we have all three finished finally, hammered to within an inch of oblivion, antiqued and now polished and finished and ready to be shipped out to their new owner. Really happy with the way they've turned out. I have to say I'm very proud of this set. I think they look incredibly cool. Love the side profile of these. It's very tricksy on the mind because it doesn't look like they're actually half. It looks a bit under, but I've done the caliper test and the measurements are exactly half. It's really quite amazing. And one of the best things about hammered silver is that it's so tactile. You can pick it up, you can ding it, dent it, drop it. It really doesn't matter. It's been smacked with a hammer thousands of times, so it's really very cool. I just want to say a big thank you to the member of the Silver Forum who commissioned these. It was an idea that I had when I was just out walking my dog. I thought, how cool would it be to have a progressive playset of them? It's a little bit of a shame that we couldn't get the really thin 2.5 ounce one, half the width of that 5 ounce. Maybe one day, if the customer's up for it, we'll do a 40 ounce so that he's got 4 in progression. But I'm really stoked with the way they've turned out, and I think it's made a pretty cool making of video as well. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this style of video. I know they're a bit long-winded, but certainly for me it's been about 5 or 6 weeks worth of different filming days to get it all together. But I think it's really cool to show the whole process, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So please do let me know with your thoughts down in that comment section. And if you enjoyed this video and you like these pieces, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. It really does help everything that we do on our channel. Otherwise, that's it from this installment of how you make a big old chunky hammered round. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, everybody out there, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.